This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome. Hi, Shiva. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew.
Can you hold on?
Hey, good morning and Happy New Year.
Shiva, can you hear me?
Yep.
Shiva?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry,
Andrew?
it was my side. My apologies.
Okay.
How's everybody?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see everybody.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, Rudy, how are you? How's everybody doing out there?
Good, good, good. Thank you. Stay nice and warm.
Where are you at?
El Paso, Texas.
Okay. I heard that Texas got pretty chilly recently, though.
Yeah, I think we went down to like the 60s.
I was talking to my buddy Mark.
So-
in Dallas. It got down into the, gosh, I want to say like the 17 or something crazy.
We got down to 26, I think, in Central Texas.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We're mountain time right on the tip of Texas. So I think we're like the stepchild of Texas because everything is different here, including our electricity.
I think I'm near Chicago. We're going to be -11 tonight. So
That's why I'm not near Chicago.
Only -11, huh, Paul? Enjoy.
yeah.
You sure you don't want to come to Tampa?
Oh, I'll be there tonight. Just I like Italian or something, but just set a plate for me. I'll be there.
Oh, Okay, we're at 3 after. Shiva, you with us?
Yes, Andrew.
Hey, how are you? Okay. So welcome everybody to the partner call. I'm sure more are going to be coming in. I see them as we are kicking things off here. My name is Andrew Morgan, and I've been helping the CyberCNS team on their go-to-market since the inception. Many of you guys have been with us since the inception, but if you're new today, welcome. And the format of the partner call is pretty straightforward. First, Shiva will give us an update on what's been released, what is coming out. I'll keep an eye as he's sharing that on chat. I'll interrupt as seemingly fit, where we have a spot or two, and then we'll open it up for general Q&A. Shiva will also probably share some about, what's coming up in the not too distant future. So Shiva, with that, let me let you take on over.
Thank you, Andrew. And wish you all a very happy new year. I just heard basically you folks caused 1 million cases per day in the new COVID. So I hope everybody is keeping safe. So here is what we have for this week. So you can see my screen, right?
Hey Shiva, when is CyberCNS going to start detecting COVID?
We already do.
I found this on the web for when.
Steve, you hear that?
Yeah, you already do. Yeah.
Shiva, we can hear and see you.
Perfect. So one of the features that basically we left last year with, but basically never kind of released it. And I know basically a lot of you were very upset with us for that, but finally it's out. It's there in your instances today. Basically the number of days that you want to suppress a vulnerability by default, it is set to 0. And so even if a new Microsoft patch comes, if you essentially say 30 days based on your SLA, essentially it will suppress those vulnerabilities. It does actually show up in your remediation plan, but it will essentially not show up in the count of vulnerabilities. And that way, essentially, when you're showing reports, etc., it can essentially be done. And again, this is essentially there both at a global level and at a company level. So you can tweak this number across the global and company level. And based on that, the vulnerabilities are essentially kind of displayed, the counts are displayed. And that's the same thing that carries over to reporting and every other piece. As I said, the only thing that we are not removing right now is the remediation, because I think it is important that the remediation still tells you that you have to remediate this, but in all other functions, it basically kind of suppresses it. So this is basically live and available in your systems. So please have a go at it and let us know what you think about how it's working and if anything needs to be changed in that whole piece. Second, one of the requests from a few of you essentially was that you want to see a global dashboard of the whole Log4j piece. And so we essentially created a global dashboard, basically available from the global view, which is over there. And so you can essentially see across every company name, which asset name and application directory, you can essentially kind of slice and dice this information that you want across the global dashboard. Third was basically one of the things that we were constantly seeing is that like people were using multiple MFA devices and then the ability to manage those MFA devices. So that essentially is now provided. So you can essentially kind of go and delete your old MFA, recreate your MFA and all of those pieces, which was earlier missing. The next one was that this was actually something that came up yesterday, and in response to that, we actually created this today and we are basically pushing this out live. So one of the things was that we essentially kind of said anything less than 2.17 is vulnerable and basically put that whole thing out. But that's because 1.x has a bunch of vulnerabilities, which basically they said they will not fix. So it is vulnerable if you have it. And then you have 2.0, 2.x, which has the J&A lookup vulnerability. And then you have 2.15, 2.16, which are still vulnerable, which found new vulnerabilities. And basically you need to be on 2.17. However, a lot of folks basically wanted us to basically kind of distinguish this and basically provide it in a clear fashion. And so we basically created this dashboard. So you can essentially see that you can see 1.x version, or which is basically an older version. Is it vulnerable? Yes. And where is it present? So you can actually click on a plus button that comes right here, and then you can essentially see exactly those pieces filtered on the right hand side. Second is 2.0x to 2.14x. Now this is essentially the one that has the J&A lookup issue. And so anything that is running that issue essentially is a vulnerable version, and that we have over there. And basically anything that is 2.17x and above, basically which are fixed versions. And if there are any versions which are between 2.14x and 2.17, it will also show up over here. So this way what happens is that we've kind of broken it down into these different categories, so that you basically get a very clear idea of, like, yes, there is a vulnerability, but it is not the log4 shell, or it is basically log4 shell. So you can essentially kind of get that breakdown using this particular dashboard. And again, a couple of folks basically said that they wanted actual reports, which they can essentially take back to their customers. And so those reports have essentially been provided. And then we basically have created a report for Active Directory password policy. So that basically was a report that was required. So basically that also has been provided. And then in assessment, what was happening is that you basically, when you use your normal logins, then you essentially kind of use your login password, and then you have to enter your MFA. That was missed out last time. So basically, if you have MFA enabled, you will have to enable you basically provide your MFA code, and then it will essentially authenticate back into the portal. So this is this thing. We've been working over the Christmas weekend to basically kind of get the entire agent enhanced. It's basically much better and much more stable right now. There are the last set of enhancements that we are basically kind of committing and basically doing a test of. But right now, the first thing that we've done is that if you remember the old version, it would essentially kind of keep trying the incorrect passwords, etc. Right now, it does not do that. It maintains a history of all the credential IDs that it has tried before. And if that credential ID has not changed, it will not try it again. So that way you don't get into the problem of account lockouts and all of those pieces. And second is that there were certain cases where in SMB, and I basically remember Mark Fields, who basically brought this case to us. In a lot of cases, what would happen is that we would have timeouts, and basically when we retry it after some time, it basically works. So in order to basically address that particular case, we kind of have basically created a what is called a retry queue. So whatever doesn't basically get addressed in the first phase and is because of certain SMB errors, etc., we're putting them into a retry queue and then trying them into phase 2. So that way what happens is that we try to get the coverage to the maximum extent possible over there. So that's essentially what we've been doing with the agent enhancements. And there are more enhancements actually that are coming out. A lot of it basically driven by what we've done with the assessment scans. And those will essentially reduce the overall time for scanning, reduce the amount of CPU and all of those pieces. So, and also it reduces the amount of pieces that we use, things like Nmap for. So that's basically what we're working on. You remember before we went on, we basically had AWS issues with instances losing IP address and becoming unreachable. This issue, we basically work with AWS, and the way that it works right now is that we are essentially running outward ping from your instance, and then basically checking if the ping is working. If the ping is not working, what we are then doing is that we're going into the Ethernet logs to figure out if the Ethernet has basically lost its DHCP IP, and if yes, we're restarting the networking subsystem. And if the restarting the networking subsystem does not work, then we are essentially going through a auto reboot and then bringing back the services up. So this is what we've done in order to address this issue that AWS Lightsail has. And what we are hoping is that with the migration to the new infrastructure with Kubernetes, this problem should no longer be there. And we should basically kind of get rid of it probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Basically, we will be there because we are halfway through all the migration scripts, etc. And things look good so that we can essentially kind of scale you and scale you down as you require. One of the things that we had to do in order to basically be able to migrate to the new infrastructure is kind of rewrite the entire notification engine. And if you, from our past this thing, one of the things that was there is that our notifications were there, but it was not basically kind of neat. It was basically, yeah, it worked, but it was not exactly what we would say is basically top-notch quality. So right now, one of the things that basically this notification engine does is it's two parts. One is it is based on Elasticsearch itself. So we've used the feature of Open Distro where you can essentially define rules to bring back notifications to understand what has happened in the last X minutes or last 12 minutes and look at history of transitions. And then based on the transition history, we are essentially generating these notifications. So that way we don't miss anything because there is an event or any of those pieces. Second, it lowers the burden on the actual server because it basically is timed and basically it looks at a subset of data. Last but not the least, it also allows us to scale it because there are new things that we need to notify on, and now we'll be able to kind of quickly notify you on those things. The last thing that we're working on entirely on the notification engine is we understand that that whole UI that we have right now actually, if I say it mildly, it sucks because it has that whole list which is dumped on the screen. Classifying those into categories and subcategories and being able to kind of switch on a category or switch off a category is something that from a UI UX perspective we're working on, and we'll get that released also very soon. And because the new engine understands those categories and subcategories. So that's essentially what we've been working on the last week or so. So if there are any questions, we can go through the process.
Okay,
Sure.
so let me, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna start just by saying I'm fairly new, my first day on the job here using CyberCNS. We got our first, I guess, paying customer. And so,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. And so the just for me as a new user, for our paying clients, do we install probes or agents on all endpoints or just one endpoint and then start the scans from there? Or what's the best practice for that?
So Rudy, the basic standard answer is it depends. So if you want to basically just get a full network view of the systems and you have access to all the credentials and it's kind of an AD and basically co-located environment, the probe will do your job. If you have basically machines which are remote, which are basically connecting from homes, etc., which you still need to scan, then you need to use the lightweight agents in conjunction with the probes. And there are certain cases where in case you want to basically kind of do a one-time scan, etc., then essentially you can use the probe or the lightweight agent as a one-time agent too.
Okay. So with this customer that has everything on-prem, we can do a probe, and then would you rather it be like on a workstation, on a server, or what would you recommend?
It can be a workstation or a server. So typically if you have Active Directory in there, then
Right.
what you would typically want to do is to just drop it on one of the domain controllers there and basically have it scan the entire network, which you pull up the data and basically push it over. If you don't have Active Directory, no problem, drop it on the workstation and then basically give it the credentials and it will scan.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
All right, let me go back up here, Shiva, bear with me. Okay, Craig. Hey, Craig, do you have audio about, just to confirm what you're asking about the 30-day setting?
So Andrew, I just want to point out one thing. I think a couple of people have done this. So just wanted to point out that when you're using the RMM to push out the agents, right? If you should not be using the install options, right? Basically, you should not say -m probe or -m lightweight agent because that is the install command. So you should use the -m scan command because what's happening is that we are noticing that in a few cases, you're seeing repeated registrations of the same machine on every cycle, and that is because you're using it to install it and then you're uninstalling it. So just wanted to make sure that everybody basically kind of understands this both.
Shiva, I'm not sure I clearly understand that. So we use the RMM to push the CyberCNS agent with the lightweight probe with lightweight at the end, but we're not uninstalling it. This is for a long-term client. That's okay, correct?
Yeah, that's fine. It's just that some people, what they're doing is they're just installing it, then they uninstall it, so it removes. So it basically loses its ID, right? And then they do the scan the next day, it gets a new ID. So if
Okay.
you look at their agents list, it is basically like a whole bunch of agents with the same name coming again and again and again.
Okay. We're using it. We're checking if the CyberCNS agent is no longer there, then we reinstall it. If somehow it goes away, but we reinstall it. So
That's perfect, Steve.
Okay, can we go back to Craig? Craig, do you have audio? Craig Kerrigan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was just wondering where that suppress vulnerabilities option was.
It's basically under global settings. You will basically see that suppress vulnerabilities over there.
And if I don't see it there?
Swami is on the call. He'll make sure that it might just be basically you have to refresh, or yours is on-prem or basically on
No, we're hosted.
hosted. I'll get that checked. It must be pushed out for some reason. If it's not updated on your system, you just check it out.
Good, thank you.
Shiva, if he was logged in when it was pushed, will that matter? Or
Yeah, we just refresh the screen, like do a full cache clear and refresh, or just try.
can you? What's that again? Where a full cache reload? What are the commands again? Just for everybody to hard reload, Shiva.
Yeah, we just select the developer tools and then you basically kind of click on the refresh button. It will show you like a hard reload kind of an option. So that way you don't need to kind of clear the cache or anything of that order.
Craig, you
Where
want
was
to
that
just
again?
Good. In Google, correct me if I'm wrong, Shiva, you go to the developer tools and choose the hard reload function.
Yep.
Let us know if you see that, Craig, and if it works. And just come back to us. Bradley at Cal. Bradley, you want to talk about the 1x JNDI, the question there that you have? Do you have audio by chance? You may not. Okay. So Shiva, he says, is there a reason the 1.x version shows being vulnerable, but not having a JNDI lookup 1x version? So 1x version can't even do the JNDI lookup, but I'm still not sure why these are showing up as there isn't any patching to be done.
No, that's true, basically, but they do have vulnerabilities which are unpatched. So which is why we basically throw them up there. And as I said, with the new dashboard that we put up, we're categorizing them separately so that you can basically say that this is 1.x, I'm not going to touch it. It's fine.
Okay. James asks, can we disable logon attempts altogether?
So how can we disable logon attempts? Because if you give me a set of credentials, I have to try those to figure out which asset is going to use which credential, right? Or if you are able to provide those credentials and on a per asset basis, then yes, we can do it.
Is that latter part, James, what you're talking about? I don't know if you have audio or not. You go back down.
I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
What it is I'm getting just, we've got multiple scanning tools and just getting a huge amount of failed logon attempt alerts, anonymous logon alerts, and it's just white noise that we're just kind of, crying wolf and we're ignoring them all. So I'd like to just kind of minimize these scanning logon attempts. I've given credentials for Active Directory to log into Active Directory from a discovery standpoint, but I just don't want it to try to hit everything on the network trying to log in. Because it just increases my failed attempts.
We can provide a setting where you can basically say, I go to my Active Directory, discover the assets there, but then don't try to scan the actual assets itself. We can do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. bear with me here. Okay, if a client says no, Joseph, client says no, what's the process to uninstall the software, Shiva? So
You just go to the probes and basically click on, you have uninstall, and you can basically delete it, and then it will delete the agent remotely also.
I'm assuming it's like, you mean like go to the agent probe area, right? The three dots, Shiva?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, oh, Ben just answered it. The update, I'm on Paul. Suppress phone. Paul, you're checking, it says the update button on suppress vulnerability days is not working.
Yeah, I found at both the global and site level, but when I put a different value other than 0 in, hit update, it doesn't seem to apply. Not sure if there's just an issue with our instance or if it's more of a global thing, but tried at both the site and the global level and come back to the screen and it just always says 0. Love the thing. As soon as it get it to apply, then it's going to really help there. So, but I just can't get it to update.
I'll just get your instance checked right now.
Okay.
Craig, back to you. Where do you see that option? Craig, were you able to see it after you refreshed?
Yeah, that was fixed. I asked another question, but yeah.
Are you able to see the feature now, though, Paul? I'm sorry,
Yes.
Craig. Oh, you can. Okay, great. Okay. What's the status on patching, Shiva? Chocolatey integration, Ben's asking.
It's actually ready to go. We're just basically waiting for the move to the new infra so that we can basically release it in one go. So from our perspective, it is basically kind of tested and it is ready to go.
And so what's the timeline, Shiva, on moving the to the new infrastructure?
It's basically in the next, we are basically planning the migration on Jan 17th. And then post that we'll push a patch, which will basically be, I think Jan 19th to 20th is where you can start using chocolate. And again, it will basically be an option that you'll have to explicitly enable. It is not something that's enabled by default. So,
right. Yeah, there's almost like another, for lack of a better word, like EULA, if you will, Shiva there.
Yeah.
Okay. Dennis, update on user access logging.
Yeah, we finished that also. We've got the entire set of logs. Actually, it's key clock, and we basically pulled it through an API and put it into Elastic. And now we're basically just creating a dashboard out of it. So tomorrow you should see it, Dennis.
Okay, I'm just reading through the comments. Okay, Will, how are you, bud? We were told not to put probes on DCs, but to use lightweight agents on DCs as it gets additional information. Report support told us. Has something changed, Shiva?
No, nothing has changed. Like you can put lightweight agents on DCs, it will still get the data, and probe is nothing but it will behave as a lightweight agent for the machine it's installed on, and then it will pull data from all the other machines. So there is no difference.
Yeah, hey guys, I guess what I would be asking for is like, what is best practice? Because there's been a little bit of confusion through time, like what is the best way to do that? So if we do install the probe on a DC, will it get us all of the Active Directory reports? At one time we were told that no, it would not, that you would have to put the lightweight agent on there in order to get those reports. So has that part changed specifically, or what is best practice?
So essentially in 1.0, we had that problem where we basically kind of had only the lightweight agent, which was pulling things like event logs and Active Directory information. In 2.0, once we unified the agent that's installed on a DC behaves as a lightweight agent for that particular machine and as a probe for all the other machines. So essentially, you will get back all the information if you install a probe on a DC.
Thank you.
Okay. Ian asks, when will the documentation reflect these
It
details?
already reflects these details. I will basically do a double check once again tomorrow to see if anything is missing. I'll take the help of my colleague Manoj, who's basically joined us, to also basically kind of verify that documentation and make sure that's right.
And Shiva, any update on potentially sunsetting V1 documentation to mitigate confusion? As you know, people.
Yeah, where I think basically got close to 90% of the folks already migrated on to V2. So I think we're going to basically switch off the documentation, like probably in a week or so, and then have the remaining people also migrate to this thing. But we still have to give them a link. So we're trying to figure out how to basically provide that link within the V1 instance if they want to continue. So.
Okay. So it's just some comments here from Jerry and Adam on lightweights. I think they were just commenting. Do you guys, Jerry or Adam, want to say anything about that? The comments you were making?
Yeah,
No, I
this
think.
is. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
I have to actually jump off anyway, Jerry, so you can go. I have a hard stop at 11:30. So, yeah, I think we just talked about it, but.
Yeah, in our case, our main confusion came about when the agent executable was consolidated. At first, we did not realize that you had to do a -M instead of a -I to run the lightweight agent. So we were inadvertently installing the CyberCNS service on computers that we had not planned on, where we just wanted to run a lightweight scan with nothing installed. So it's important to get the -M and the scan switch in there so you don't do that if you're going for lightweight.
Okay, Steve makes a comment the same. Okay. Paul, could there be a roadmap item to define credentials at the site level instead or in addition to the agent level?
So when you're installing a probe, it's at a site level, right? Is there, do you have sites with basically multiple probes on them?
Well, also, I guess it also gets to the aspect of mobility of the probe. So credentials are one aspect as well as the data that's related to the probe. So if we're decommissioning a server that we have the probe on, not only do we have to recreate the credentials on the new probe, but the data that was associated with the previous probe, my understanding, is lost when we uninstall that probe and move it to a new host. So migration from host to host might be more of the core, but there are also some larger networks too where we were determining that we needed multiple probes. That was also previous to the upgrade where the agent has become much more robust and reliable. But either load balancing or migration of probes would be two use cases for authentication, not tied at the probe level, but more at the site level.
Okay, so anyway, we basically migration of the probe, there are, I think 6 or 7 folks who have actually raised tickets on it saying that they need to be able to, there are 2 requests which on probes that we're working on. One is basically the ability to migrate a probe, install a new probe and say that this is a substitute for the existing probe. That basically we're working on. And the second thing that we're working on is to basically convert a probe into a lightweight agent or lightweight agent to a probe or vice versa. So those are the 2 requests that we're currently working on. So detaching the credentials alone from any of this, from the probe settings itself, is something that we can take and basically say that, yeah, you can define the credentials at a company level. And we can then essentially use that across all of the agents that are installed in a particular company. But you'll have to still provide the subnet ranges on a per probe level.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, in fact, it would want that granularity because, as I said, as we load balance and we may define a probe per certain VLANs or certain subnets, and but yet share credentials.
So pretty much the other end, where the modem is.
Chuck,
Was plugged
can
into
you
the
mute
surge
Chuck?
protector, plugged it right into the wall.
Shiva?
Oh,
Fixed it.
because the surge protector basically,
I think it's causing interference.
yeah, it's basically isolating it from the power line.
Plugged it
Sure, you
directly
hear
into
me?
the wall with that
Yeah.
really longer cable and
You could just mute Chuck.
started working.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Adam left the lawn. Okay. Thomas, will there be any granular control for suppression of vulnerabilities? Do we
Yeah.
have that?
So at this point, we can suppress vulnerabilities of showing up it's reporting, but it's not notified. But sometimes you would maybe want to have the category 9 to 10 not suppressed, and the others one you do want to have suppressed. Would there be granularity between high, medium, critical, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we can add that. We can basically say suppress X number of days for this severity. Yes, we can provide that. I'll take that up.
Is Rashad, thanks. Is Rashali on?
Yes, Andrew, I'm there.
Hey, so Adam he had to jump off, but he said he left the laundry list of stuff in Slack. Is there any chance you can just take a look and see the relevance of that?
Sure, I will do that.
Thanks so much. Okay. Rolando. One of the slides was about MFA setup. I'm not able to find MFA setup on V2. Where can I find that setting, Shiva?
If you go to users and then click on the particular user, and then you'll essentially see MFA over there, and then you can set up the MFA.
Wasn't working for when I click edit on my name.
So what does it give you?
When I hit MFA, it tells me no MFA found, and that's it.
So you have not set up MFA, right?
No.
Okay, so that means MFA is disabled. So we will basically get that enabled for you.
Okay, you got to do it on your end.
Yeah, and we'll basically give a UI this thing where you can enable it yourself. So
Okay. Going back to one of the previous, if you don't mind, about the scanning, the whole network. I noticed that too. Our group policy here is the account gets locked after 8 attempts, and I put a pretty big amount of, I think, 5 networks, 6 networks in my list of in the probe settings, and my 80 account quickly got locked out because it was trying to use it on devices that were not on the domain. So I was hoping that there'll be a setting that I can say just for this specific domain, use this, a login, if possible.
yeah, we can basically, because see, the only problem with that is that when we basically investigate a machine, right, we don't know whether it is part of a domain, not part of a domain, or none of those pieces, right? Because we're getting an IP address, we're trying to probe it, trying to figure out the OS, and then we're trying to get into the machine. So at that point of time, we cannot figure out whether we have MFA or whether it is a Windows machine that's domain joined or not joined. So that's basically the only issue with that whole piece.
Okay. Jerry, you've got a roadmap request. Jerry Johnson?
Yep. This, in fact, is actually not a roadmap request. It's actually something that we're doing right now. So when you do an Active Directory scan, it will just do the Active Directory scan and not kind of kick off a network scan and pull all the network assets together. So
yeah, we've hit a lot of times during engagements where it would be great, like if the engagement has been taking a long time, especially for a project. Sometimes we just want to refresh the Active Directory stuff so that we can, when we generate the reports, we have current, login times and information about the Active Directory, and we don't want to have to run the whole network scan again. So.
Okay. Let's see. Sean, is there a list of supported scanning endpoints? I don't see valid vulnerability data for Workstation 2000, 2003, Exchange 2010. I see a bad vulnerability data for ESXi 6.7. Shiva, you there?
Yep, I'm just checking.
Okay.
We basically Windows Server 2000, 2003, and Exchange 2010. Okay. We basically look at anything which is basically about 2000. Where 2012 and above is what we're looking at in servers, because we don't see much of Windows Server 2000 and 2003. So we'll basically put in those vulnerabilities also into the system and basically get it working for you, Sean.
Okay, Paul, we made a mistake when configuring. Okay, we made a mistake when configuring discovery settings for one of our clients. We configured a 18 rather than a 24. There are a lot of blank assets showing up. What's the best way to rebuild a company in CyberCNS rather than manually removing the devices?
Just send us like like you can do a bulk delete of assets actually, and if that basically is not satisfying your requirement, please let us know and we can just remove all the assets that you want to remove from the backend. That's not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, ultimately, there's just like a ton of IPs showing up in the asset list, and you can remove 200 at a time, but there's like, yeah, I've been going through it whenever I have some spare time, removing them 200 at a time. There's like 16,000 that was showing up in there, and just wondering if like,
we can go and
can we do it?
Just please raise a ticket. We can just get it deleted in no time for you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Ricky, are you planning more options for white labeling? Currently, we changed icons and such, but when logging in the text, it still refers to CyberCNS on the hosted version. Hello? You there, Shiva?
Yep, I'm there, but I'm just saying what text. So if you can just give us what text you want changed, we can basically kind of white label it. So not an issue.
Okay. Chuck, you put a bunch of stuff in. Is this more of like a support?
Yeah, you can ignore it. I'm working with support. It's better plan.
Okay, awesome. All right. So back to Craig. So we are one of the clients that did the scan every day. We have hundreds or thousands of old assets under the probe agents field. Is there a way to bulk remove? So can you also put in a ticket, Craig, and they will bulk remove those?
Yep.
Awesome. Ian, will those be silent install updates? Ian, what will be silent install?
Chocolatey. It will be silent installs and updates, yes.
Okay. Jim Harriman, what is the timeline for the compliance module work with Mac OS Monterey?
By 27th, it will basically be released.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that answer.
27th of Jan.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, I get AD reports with no agent on. Oh, you're just making a comment, Chris. Sorry about that. Let's see. Mark. Currently, we're only able to see agents probes for a particular customer, but would like to be able to view a complete list of all agents and probes for all customers, and then be able to download that into an Excel.
We'll put it in the global dashboard. Not a problem.
Okay. Craig, Gene, oh, comment, bear with me, guys. Dennis, is that a question to us there on the AD scans?
Yes, we've had actually 3 tickets on this, so we are looking at this.
Yeah, we've only seen it in environments where there's a fairly large Active Directory, like several thousand users. But we've had a couple of clients say that it's hit the CPU pretty hard on those machines when it does the AD scans.
Okay, Steve. Adam, so those VM, is that a question, Adam, that was answered or not? We're here. Adam Robinson with the VMs on the probe.
It was a question to the other partners, really, just what other people were doing. So it's not a question to Shiva or anybody, but it's interesting what others are doing.
Got it. Okay, so
I'll
Dennis,
say,
yeah, go ahead.
we use Linux either on a small PC, like a mini form factor PC or a micro form factor PC, or a Raspberry Pi anytime we can.
Ian, can you come out and chat about what you mean with chocolatey and support for wind? Can you give us your sense there, what you're looking for?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, chocolatey is a licensed based. It can be open source or free, or it can be license based. License based is per node, and that avoids any sort of site limitations to patching. If 5 machines try to go to patch, maybe 4 will, and 1 will say, you've hit the limit. So I was just wondering how is Choco being used? Is WinGet maybe going to be supported? That kind of stuff.
So we basically have installed our own Choco server, which basically we are hosting. So basically there is no limitation in terms of the counts, etc. over there. And we are basically using Choco's professional support, but we are not basically licensing it on a per node basis, because then I'll have to pass on that cost to you folks, because as you know, we've kept the cost really low. So essentially what we are doing is that we basically keep we've taken professional support from them in terms of being able to establish our own servers, etc., and certify them. But we essentially use it like the open source version in terms of doing the actual deployment. And WinGet, we've not looked at it yet, but we can basically look at it if that's an option that other partners are also interested in us looking at it.
That's awesome. Thank you. WinGet is just, just a Choco alternative. I'm not sure if it, it sounds like with what you guys have in place and how you have it in place, Choco's, would be great. So I was just fuzzy on how it was going to be utilized, but that sounds great. I'm excited. Thank you.
Ian. Okay. Paul, quick question. Does CyberCNS v2 deployment of the lightweight agent supposed to work or support Windows 7 machines, Shiva?
Like supported, we've seen it work on Windows 7 machines. If not, let us know. We can basically look at it, but we basically generally don't test it on every release, but in case you're facing any issues, let us know. We'll basically just test it out and let you know if there's a problem and fix it.
Okay. Thomas, is there documentation for the Azure AD authentication SSO configuration?
Yes, complete documentation is there.
Chris, you're.
Can you link it, because I'm looking at the Atlassian website and I'm unable to find it. Maybe it's my Google skills that not working.
Yeah, Vrishali, can you send Thomas the documentation, please?
Yes, sir. I'm just sharing it on the chat. Give me a moment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rashali. Chris says he's having issues with Meraki integration. Chris, have you raised a ticket about this in support?
We've actually pushed a fix for one of the issues with Meraki. So it should basically, it should have gotten resolved. If not, please send me a mail. I'll basically take a look at it myself.
Perfect. Good, Chris?
Yep.
Awesome. Chris Fanning, our dashboard continues to crash or not respond. Does anyone else have this issue? First, I'm hearing of, I've heard of issues, Chris. The first I'm hearing of. Is anybody else having dashboard crashes? Chris, maybe, is there a support ticket open?
Yes, sir. I have one open, and it's been going on for probably about almost 2 weeks now, where we'll be able to get in, and then for about 3 or 4 hours throughout the day, it'll just go to the sign in button. Anytime you click it, we can't get to it. I've opened a ticket with support, and their suggestion was to try incognito, a different browser, or clear the cache. I've done that every time, and I still have no luck.
Is there any, I don't know, again, environmental things that you have that could be shutting it down, possibly?
Not that I'm aware of. It's multiple users at our company, and it's whether we're in the office or at home on different devices.
Chris, I'll basically take this, Vishali, send this ticket to me. I'll have a look at this tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thanks for, and then thanks for posting that for Shali for, oh gosh, Thomas. Sean, that happens to you. Okay, if it's happening again, this is just, again, send the tickets. Shiv will take a look at those because he's going to be looking at this in particular spec. Okay, would someone provide a spec on Raspberry Pi? Do we have a spec on Raspberry Pis for the probe, Shiva?
Yes, it's there in the documentation, so I can send it over.
And then Bradley, you are experiencing crashing dashboards when scans are happening?
Yeah, I was going to expand on it earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
It seems to be.
Can you talk up a little? You're faint.
Oh, yeah. Does that sound any better?
No, it's really faint. I'm not sure if you're in a car or something.
I mean, can you hear me better now?
Way better. We heard you, now you're gone. Good. Brad? You look muted, Brad. All right, so wait, hopefully we'll get Brad back. All right. I think we're pretty caught up. Should have anything on your mind?
Nothing else, Andrew. We just basically, for anybody who's having these issues, please basically just send me those ticket numbers. We'll basically look at it, and I'll basically kind of, because this week we're going in through where everything goes into stability phase. So that's basically the goal of this week. So
okay, very cool. Bradley, did we get you back before we wrap up here? Okay, we don't have Bradley.
I think someone else had this question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, hey, Dennis.
I'm not sure if this was answered, but when the scans run, does the scanner first check for a lightweight agent and then not scan the machine if the agent is installed? Which I think is something that was happening in version 1, but was delayed and being ported to version 2.
And now it's back again. So basically, if we see a lightweight agent installed on a machine, we'll basically drop scanning that up completely.
Okay, great, perfect. And then the other thing was, some of our clients have expressed some concerns about Chaco, and so we'd like to have some documentation for, basically where these things are coming from, basically how the entire system is secured, so that we can give our clients some confidence that they're not going to pick up malware through Chaco.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Okay, okay, James, what causes probes to show offline, yet the computer system is up and the service is also up and running?
If it's not able to contact the server, basically say the main thing is that when the agent comes up, it basically sends, it actually does a simple HTTP poll where it pulls data saying that get me work, what's the next set of instructions I have, right? So if the server does not receive the get work notification at any point of time for more than like 10 minutes, then essentially it will mark that probe as offline. The moment it basically gets that notification, it will essentially mark it as online. So typically in most of these cases, what we see is that sometimes like the intermediate firewalls, they basically kind of break the connection and not allow those connections to go through further. And then at some point of time, they start allowing it, and then you see this kind of it going offline and online.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we prefer to run the probes on Linux is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Shiva, but it seems like you get much better logging on a Linux server. Basically, you get much better logs in the syslog than you do on the Windows logging.
That's correct.
So if you need to do troubleshooting, you have a lot more information to work with.
Yep. So Dennis, your tickets are easier to work with because you already give us the crash dumps and everything. So for us, it becomes very easy to fix those. Bradley asked if the HTTP pull is based on a DNS name server or IP based. It's DNS server, DNS name. It's your CyberCNS instance DNS name.
So do you see Chris's comment, Shiva?
Yep. So if WinPCAP or NPCAP is installed, then yes, we have a conflict, and we've kind of documented that also. Yes, Bradley. DNS filtering could cause an issue with that.
All right. Fantastic. All right, great. Great session, Shiva. Thank you as always. Thanks everybody for joining, and wishing everybody a fantastic week. Shiva, any closing comments? And we'll be back next week. For partner call.
Yep, we'll be back next week. Thanks everyone, and wish you all a very happy new year again.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.